Hey everyone, and welcome to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek, the original series, Season 1, Episode 22. It's called Space Seed. Full spoilers for the episode, as always. This feels like a monumental
Yeah,
part of it,
we've reached a big one.
because I feel like when you think of Season 1, now obviously there's some important ones early on in Season 1, you know, where no man has gone before, so on, because of the name, but, like, the seminal episode that everyone talks about because it's important is Space Seed. Season 2, I'd argue, is probably the Tribbles episode. It's the first one that comes to mind for me. I mean,
Yeah. They're the ones that have lasting repercussions beyond this show.
yeah. Season 3, I don't know if it has one, which maybe
Well, we'll find out when we get there.
yes. But this is Space Seed. This is the one that introduces Khan, which of course is a big deal. And it's funny because I'm pretty sure I saw Wrath of Khan. I saw the movies before I went back and watched the series, and it was weird going back to this and going, "Oh, this is so weird." They basically, for the second movie, they decide we're going to pick an episode and make a sequel to an episode. Is basically what they did.
Which part? I've not seen that movie.
You have not. This is all completely fresh to you.
I like. I obviously I've seen Into Darkness, but
You've seen Into Darkness, but no.
I've seen Into Darkness, but I saw this episode before I saw Into Darkness because I only watched Into Darkness in the run up to Beyond
Well, that
because
was
it didn't look that great.
Yeah, that was confusing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, forget Into Darkness. That's its own
Yeah.
weird interpretation of things and
Yeah.
whatever.
I just thought, I'll point that out that this is the weird experience I have with Star Trek.
Okay, so I mean, it's a good episode. It's a great episode. It's got a lot of very interesting ideas that it brings to the table, and I think what is interesting, I think a lot of it would probably fall flat if Ricardo Montalban wasn't such a good actor. Like he carries a lot of just the weight of like what the premise is on his shoulders, and it works because of him.
Yeah, you believe he is what he says he is.
But we find out a lot of really interesting things about the mythology. We hear about the eugenic wars.
Yes, in the 90s.
In the 90s, which I feel like, well, I don't even mind that they mentioned there was a war in the 90s. The fact that they're saying, oh, this spaceship they're on, that they went in cryo sleep and left, was in the 90s. I'm like, nah, you were shooting a wee bit too optimistic there, I think, writers.
Just a touch.
Just a touch. And then they said, oh, well, yeah, space travel used to be really slow until 2018. I'm like, yep, still shooting too high.
Yeah. I appreciate the effort, but
Now, admittedly, we've got a year left, but I've got a funny feeling that warp speeds are not going to be a thing in a year's time.
NASA might have a breakthrough, or they might have done, if not for certain budgetary slashings.
Those dates made me kind of chuckle just because I'm sure in the 60s that felt like ages away. That felt like that's far in the future. But obviously now it's like yeah, okay, but maybe overshot that a little bit.
Yeah.
So we found out about the eugenics wars, and this was about these genetically sort of curated sort of human beings who were sort of modified to be the best of everything. Kind of think almost Captain America-esque, but without a serum kind of thing. But more from the perspective of like making the parents have the right baby rather than doing it afterwards.
Yeah, it's selective breeding.
Yeah, and the idea that they'd be stronger, they'd be faster, they'd be possibly smarter, but with all this also came some side effects, which were sort of increased ambition, and they basically all wanted to be dictators.
It was kind of they can do more, so they believed they deserved more. So why not take more?
Yeah, in a weird way, it was almost like arguably like a new form of racism, where they looked down upon the rest of humanity and said, "We should rule you because
we're better than you."
Yeah, I mean, it's never put in those sort of terms, but that's kind of like, if you think about it, it kind of is that.
It is.
So that's the setup. So they find this ship floating out in space, and like, oh, this is old, this is ancient, and they find all these cryopods. Khan wakes up. He's something goes wrong with his pod at first, and he's knocked out for a while. So they bring him onto the ship, and
they have to save him because he's like, oh, if we leave him in that pod, he's going to die.
McCoy does his best, and eventually wakes up, of course, and obviously, like, so we get like drip fed this information about this eugenics war and how there was these dictators who ruled parts of the planet. How there was all these wars, and eventually there was about 90 that were unaccounted for that disappeared. and it becomes clear because we know there's 72 that have survived. Some of the pods have killed some of the people on the ship, but there's 72 left, which sounds like they might have started with 90.
Yeah.
So we get that sense, and then the episode kind of devolves into like Kirk and Khan kind of just playing almost chess with their words, and
Yeah,
like
it's almost a philosophical debate over whether Khan was right in, his belief that his existence is better, therefore that's why he does what he does, and the idea of him being a man out of time as well. Again, very Captain America.
Yeah, it kind of is. Obviously, on a much more negative side, but definitely the way he like he keeps saying things like, "Oh, I'm fatigued again," when he doesn't want to answer more questions, and it's all he's playing a game.
Yeah.
And what I love about him especially is that when Kirk figures something out, when he catches him in something, or he figures out part of who he was, or the lie, or when they discover that what his full name was and that he was the one who ruled in this part of the world and that kind of thing, he never gets angry that he's been figured out. He just gets impressed.
He's like, it's almost impressed that they did it, and then a little bit of disdain that it took them long enough.
Yeah, but he doesn't get angry. He sounds impressed, and he's like, "Oh, very good, exciting, Kirk." And then ultimately he kind of charms this historian whose name was making me giggle every time they said that MacGyver, Officer MacGyver, and she kind of like falls for him and is helping him take over the ship, and he assembles his army and so on and so on. And ultimately, the reason why the episode's called Space Seed is because obviously they have the whole thing where they do take over the bridge, they take over the crew. Kirk and actually, I think there's a lot of good character stuff for Kirk and the main characters in this, because they defy Khan, they refuse to give him information, they sort of stand in unison and refuse to cooperate to the point where Uhura gets slapped by one of the super
vicious
soldiers. Yeah. So no, it gets almost quite dark. I feel like this episode actually touches on a lot of sort of serious themes. Like the threat seems a bit more real than it normally does.
I think it's because ultimately the threat is just another man. I mean, he's enhanced, sure, but he's just another person. Whereas most of the threats we've encountered have been alien, these big, larger-than-life things, beings, celestial gods.
Yeah. No, I think that makes some sense. I also think part of it is because what he's doing has already happened.
Yeah.
We're comparing him to, I think, compare him to Napoleon and stuff, and I think Hitler's another obvious kind of person to compare him to. But it feels like it's almost that he's trying to like wrangle his way into power, and then he's going to start taking things over. It feels like
he talks about how he doesn't want to rule. He wants he wants them to let him rule them. Like he wants them to like him, and that he wants them to want him in power.
And I like how Spock, who you would think would be the coldest about all this, in a way he still is, but in terms of pure logic, he's like, no, this is savage. All these people you admire are savage. Because there's that really funny scene where like Kirk and McCoy are all like, and Scotty are all they kind of admire him for his ambition and like sort of that kind of thing, and Spock like, doesn't understand like how can you admire this savage man. He's like, oh, we can think what he's doing is appalling, but admire him at the same time for his, for just for his determination. The fact that it takes a lot of effort to become a dictator.
And I think you can apply that to many real world dictators as well, in the sense that obviously what they do is appalling in the same way that is here, but they have a mentality as a person to actually strive and get there, and I think that's the side of it that they can respect to some degree.
Yeah,
they can almost wish that they had that and that they could apply to themselves, but for good.
So I think the acting from, I mean, obviously the regular crew is good, but I think Khan he completely sells it. And then after they deal with them, and MacGyver turns sort of good again and helps Kirk out, and we sort of get the conclusion. I will complain though when it sort of ends in this one-on-one fight scene where Kirk chases to like the engine room where Khan is trying to like manipulate things.
Yeah.
Some of these stunt double work in that was some of the most obvious, and even for this show, like there was some wide shots where it was just it's two different people.
Yeah. The other bit for me was usually obviously the punches, the fake punches, and it's very it's usually relatively obvious anyway, but there was the one where I think it's where Khan breaks out of his room and he does that big double-fisted swing up into the guy's chin, and it was just so clearly nowhere near.
Which, by the way, see this whole double-fisted sort of handle swing thing? I,
Yeah, that Star Trek insists on doing.
I feel like, not even just Star Trek, I feel like that's something from an old... You never see that in movies and TV now. I feel like, but stuff in the 60s and 50s, just across the board, they liked that for some... They thought, oh, it's like a double punch, it's exciting and big.
I don't understand. I mean, maybe this is just because we weren't there then, but I don't get it. Do you really get it?
Oh no, I don't get it at all because you just simply can't get the same momentum into the punch by having both hands.
Exactly. It's all in the shoulders.
Yeah, part of what makes the punch hit is because you can have a good swing on it, but when you've got two, it's like, like the one shoulder stops the other shoulder from swinging properly.
Unless you've got a bat.
Unless, because in that case though, the bat's got a swing on its own.
Yeah, exactly.
You just start the swing and then the bat takes over. It's
Yeah.
this is a weird conversation to.
But that's what these punches are like. It's almost like they're holding a bat or a club or something, but they're just not. But they're just hitting them with the fists instead.
And I almost can't imagine like that hitting. That feels like that would hurt my hand more than it would hurt the person's chin. Maybe equally. I don't know, but
yeah,
I feel like the hand on the outside would just hurt.
No, I know what you mean.
So.
Strange, isn't it? I mean, it's also strange that we've got through 22 episodes before we've really questioned it in this depth. Because it's been in a lot of them.
It's like because you brought it up and it made me think of it. Because normally I think this when I watch it, and then I forget about it.
Yeah, I do the same.
But you've pointed it out now, so I'm diving into it.
We're telling. We'll never tackle it again. This is it. This is a one-time thing. We're doing it now.
On the opposite side, though, I do actually love Spock's Vulcan grip. I love. Because I love that when like Kirk will distract the super soldier. It's when he's just been saved from the airlock place, and this soldier comes in and Spock's with him. Like Kirk goes to wrestle with him, and then as soon as Spock realizes, Kirk's okay, he just puts his hand in and puts him to sleep. I like the sort of the stealth of it. Like you can just there's been a couple of scenes in past episodes where Spock just sort of like walks up behind someone, and you know he's just going to knock them out. Like, just easily.
It's also because there's an actual physical touch there, which isn't there in the other fight scenes.
Yeah.
So it's obviously it's not a big deal, but it's just the simple bit where we can see the touch, and it's more believable almost.
I think what I like about it, they've sold it so well over the course of the season at this point that it feels like an actual, it's like his finishing move that he's got. It's his signature thing. And you know that he's got this special move that he's got in his repertoire, which will just take care of the situation, assuming he's fighting a human enemy. And it's it works really well. But no, so the episode ends with they have Khan and these people and MacGyver, and they basically, and Kirk decides not to put them through prison or court martial, whatever. He decides, no, we're going to set you off on a plan, because he keeps comparing them to the first people who arrived in Australia, who shaped that country. And he basically has this idea of planting the space seed, as the episode's called, where he'll put them on this planet that's habitable but not quite like completely formed yet. It's going to be harsh, and see if they can shape it into something. And the funny thing is this episode ends with, it'll be interesting to see that in 100 years. Not quite. 15's more like it, but
yeah.
But it's an interesting ending idea to end on, and I think that's.
I agree, and I think obviously in terms of going back to the movie, it makes sense that for them to pick this one as a sequel because it gives you so much of the mythology. Mm-hmm. It sets up so many ideas. It has a compelling villain that's not evil. Like he's evil, but he's relatable to a degree.
Yeah, he
like unlike some of the big alien things, you can understand him.
And the funny thing with this as well is that it kind of is one of the only solutions that's remotely humane because of the way these people are designed. Like you either have to kill them all, or they're going to keep trying to like rule. So just give them a planet to rule.
Yeah, let them rule themselves.
Yeah,
I do like the idea as well that it comes back to he takes inspiration from Australia. And the whole thing is their ship was named after an Australian prison, and so it's kind of like he's got the idea from the original idea, so to speak.
I think it's a really good episode that gives a lot of the crew some really nice moments. Like even McCoy when like Khan wakes up and he's got the blade to his neck, and McCoy just like he just stays McCoy. He never gets scared. He's the same hard ass
Like, yeah,
McCoy.
you want to move a bit to the left for that artery.
Yeah, he even criticises him because he sort of has him by the neck, like sort of with his hand, but he also has the blade, and he's like, "Well, are you going to strangle me or stab me? God damn it, make your pick."
Yeah, make up your mind.
Which is so
And then you have, when they're all getting knocked out and dying, Kirk's giving them all the awards.
Yeah, that was a really nice moment actually.
Yeah,
Commendation for first officer this, lieutenant that.
yeah,
that was good. No, and then again that leads to them all being held captive, and Khan's try to get them to turn over to his side because he needs people who know how to work the ship to like help, like go and take over places.
Yeah. I thought it was just in general it was a nice moment for Kirk as well though, because it was like his last moment as far as he's concerned, and
he's making sure his crew are recognised for what they did. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not anything selfish. It's like, no, these are the people that need the recognition.
I was kind of laughing throughout that he's pissed that the one new female character isn't into him for a change. They're into Khan.
Yeah, it was amusing.
Oh dear. But I like to say the crew all get their good moments, especially the main characters. And we have an interesting ending, which of course was used as a seed for a sequel down the line. But the episode itself is extremely entertaining. It's probably one of the best episodes of the season so far.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Compelling, and also actually I think it's got one of the best. It's one of the best paced episodes so far. Because typically with Star Trek, I enjoy watching it, but even the good episodes we've had so far, I'll do a little bit of time. I'm like, okay, what time am I at? I want to know, like, out of the 50 minutes, where am I on the clock?
And you're only at like 30.
And sometimes I'll be like 15, and I'll be like, all right, okay, I'm only this far in. But at that usual point where I expect 15, I was at like almost 40, and it was like, oh, we're already in like the final act. I almost feel like there could be a lot more story.
No, I agree, because Star Trek is typically very slow paced, and it's not that something I hold against it. It's just that's how it is. It's 50 minutes, but sometimes due to what we expect now from a TV show, I mean, it feels a lot longer, doesn't it?
It's a combination. It's about 8 minutes longer than what we're used to now, and it's also just paced differently. Even if this was still 41, 42 minutes, it would still feel slower. I would be willing to bet you money.
I agree.
Just because of the era and the way they made things.
That's the thing. It feels longer than 50 most times when I watch it, just because of how it is paced. But that's not necessarily a fault, but this one just went in really quickly.
Yeah, this was packed with good plot.
Yeah.
Right from the start, we're hearing about these eugenic wars, and then it's mystery, like, well, who are these people? And then we slowly get more information about it. Spock's looking into it, because at first we don't know 90 went missing, and then we find that out. And then we find out that it's actually him who was ruler of this part of the planet, and so on. And it develops there, and then you've got his romance with MacGyver, that develops because she's painting all these world rulers, and then he finds a painting of him, and he's like, oh, I'm honoured, and I'm like, nah, that's awkward. If I found someone had put a painting of me as if they've got some weird crush on me, I'd be like, I don't know, this is a bit weird. A little bit.
I think you should take what you can get, to be honest.
Aye, thank you very much. But yeah, so that's Space Seed. It's a really, really good episode. It's I think that's maybe another part of it as well. Is not only did it have one of the best villains of the show, it was natural. It was there naturally for a revenge story.
Yeah, it had everything it needed. That's the thing. It sets up at the end. It's like, oh, it'd be nice to see it in 100 years. But then you get the idea of, yeah, but what if they don't want to wait 100 years?
It's funny, actually. There's actually kind of a plot hole with the movie, because I don't know this is much of a spoiler, even though you've not seen it yet. But basically, the first character who sees him in the movie is Chekhov, and he reacts to him. However,
Chekhov is not in existence as of yet.
No, he's not. I mean, maybe I'm misremembering how he reacts, but I seem to recall him reacting as if he knows who he is.
Yeah. That's also, I can't remember, when obviously Chekhov's introduced in season 2,
mm-hmm.
Is he introduced as, he's just a new character to the ship, or is he another one of those, he's around, but now we're going to show you him, as we've got many times before?
I can't remember, but we'll find out.
Because if it is that latter, he could have been on the ship during this.
Sure. I think he might have been introduced as a new person.
I can't remember. We'll find out in not too long.
A couple of months, we'll find out.
Yeah.
So No, there you go. That's Space Seed. Let us know what you think of this episode in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Helps us out a lot. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support us, you can go over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. In fact, one of the perks at $1 is that you get these episodes of Star Trek reviews a week early. So if you're watching this on the YouTubes, then the next one's already up on Patreon. So, yeah. But no, there you go. That is this week's Star Trek review. So thank you once again for watching. We'll see you next time.